Lilyhead dental practice sales were phenomenal. There were certain issues that the practice sale were always going to involve, and mainly it was lawyers, dealing with third person, fourth person. And with the practice sales help that Lilyhead sales team did was phenomenal in actually making it as seamless as possible. So instead of me chasing things up and being the middle person or the third or fourth person involved, the point of reference at Lilyhead Dental Practice Sales was the one that literally was my one and only go-to. And they dealt with the potential purchasers, chasing them up, their solicitors up, third-party loans, etc. So from my perspective, the key issues, challenges would have been, how do I carry on running my other dental practices and being a clinical practitioner, wanting to sell this branch practice of mine, knowing that everything from CQC to potential purchasers, own busy lifestyles, together with leases, together with third-party lawyers, etc., could have been a nightmare. And it took a long time. There were certain challenges very specifically with the solicitor that the purchaser was using. But the great thing about Lilyhead Practice Sales was they allowed me to just offload all that, get an occasional email update, but never pestered. And if I had any concerns, it was always best to contact them, and then they basically eased the path. So what would have been extremely stressful was 10% of the stress due to, in very particular concerns, due to Lilyhead Dental Practice Sales. An absolutely superb asset of Lilyhead Practice Sales is obviously their team. Their team is everything. And Helen, the lovely young lady I dealt with, was beyond reproach. She absolutely knew the industry inside out. She knew exactly what hurdles were going to happen before they happened. She jumped those hurdles before I even knew there was a race that was starting. So everything was already preemptive. We knew that there would be a time frame for CQC. There'd be a time frame with landlords taking their time for the leases, etc. So in every sense, the provision of a one-stop shop with, in my particular case, Helen, knowing the industry inside out, dealing with this multiple times, day in, day out, from all the different angles, from the perspective of the purchaser and the vendor, instead of being conflict of interest, it's the exact opposite. Her best interests and Lilyhead Dental Practice Sales' best interests were my interests and also the purchasers. So everybody was in the same direction with the same outcome in mind to make it as hassle-free and stress-free sale. And the great part about using Helen at Lilyhead Dental Practice Sales was she knew every aspect of it intimately. There was no having to check things. When it's done day in, day out, it becomes a pattern of behavior, and that reassurance of consistently having the answers there and then, knowing what I was talking about without having to inquire or ask or research, was an absolute gem of a process, really, because it allowed me not to worry about things, allowed me to get on with not putting my life on hold and to check in every now and again. I mean, most importantly, I think, in buying or selling a practice, there's three main things to worry about. Once you've decided practice you want to buy, or if you're selling one of your practices, three main things have to be the team that are around you that are going to make it as hassle-free for yourself. If it was easy, everybody would do it themselves, and those that do it themselves go grey. Now, if you have a team where they have individual experts that have seen all the hurdles, heard all the excuses, know how to grease the wheels and facilitate things to happen quickly, it makes life so much easier. So the three top tips are: use somebody as part of the team who knows their stuff, who has a team mentality and is prepared to be a broad set of shoulders that you can offload everything that you need to know and won't come back to you with additional questions, but come back with answers and solutions. Secondly, I think probably even more importantly, a named person that you deal with. Blank faces make sort of for quite an odd relationship, really. You want a named person that you see, that you meet, that you can literally call up and won't think twice about calling you up out of hours, because with a sale, there's no such thing as in hours and out of hours. Everybody works in their own time frames to get the job done. And that's very important. And thirdly, and I think equally as important, is to make sure it's a team that have been together for a long period of time, that have built relationships with other professionals. So all those three things work for me for Lilyhead Dental Practice Sales, and fundamentally knowing that they would be able to advise the potential purchaser on the sorts of solicitors to use, of what sort of funding aspects are available, of what the do's and don'ts are, what to be careful and mindful of. So even though I use the practice sales facility, I knew that actually the purchaser would get just as much benefit out of being told, well, look, to facilitate things, you want to use these sort of specialist solicitors, these sort of specialist accountants. These are the standard pro forma things that you'll need to provide. So please don't wait in a linear manner until everything gets asked for at the end. Have everything ready, get the ball rolling. And I think that whole basis of having somebody you can deal with, who's experienced, who can work for both sides, and it's not conflict of interest, it's combined mutual best interest, that works. And there's lots of agencies out there. Happens to be, I've dealt with a few of them, happens to be that, well, the proof is in the pudding. I used Lilyhead's agency 10, 11 years ago in between, and my last sort of experience of selling a practice was a few months ago with her as well. So as long as everybody does their diligence, you can't really go wrong. The only way of going wrong is something that might take 3 months with a particularly articulate team, might take a year, year and a half. And I don't think, time's one thing you don't get back. So yeah, I'd happily recommend, thoroughly recommend using Lilyhead's team for practice sales purchases, or even consultancy. When you're privy to that level of intimate financial details of the workings of practices, there comes a time where you actually know more about more practices than practitioners that work in them do, because you know what's involved, you know the KPIs, you know what little changes that'll make big differences at a potential sale 2-3 years down the line. So from a practice sales team, I would happily recommend Lilyhead. From a consultancy team, I think they're also useful to pick their brains, because if you are thinking of selling, it doesn't have to be now, it might be in a year's time, 2 years' time, 3 years' time. Building that relationship sooner rather than later pays dividends. The sale's been great. It's allowed me to literally draw a line under a branch practice that I've had for 10, 12 years. In fact, interestingly, I first came across Lilyhead, obviously started Lilyhead Dental Practice Sales 11 years ago when I bought the practice using her agency. So it really has been a proper full circle of life circle, where I bought one of my small branch practices from her, then utilised her for several other practice sales, acquisitions, etc. discussions. And now that same practice has been passed on. So it's a pass the parcel with the consistent sort of soft touch and heavy touch when required of Lilyhead. Now obviously post-completion now it allows me to know that everything was done in the correct manner, that there isn't any comeback. My diligence and quality assurance, yes, was provided by myself and my solicitor team, but also in advance by Helen and the Lilyhead dental team. So really now, post-completion, I've got peace of mind. Everybody was well cared for. The vendor feels happy, namely myself. The purchaser feels happy. The patients feel happy. Everyone's a winner. Little nuggets, little gems of advice, which might make a slight improvement here, might make a substantial difference in the practice value a year or two down the line. So all I would say is I've had a good journey, good experience. Lilyhead in herself is wonderful. Helen at the team's wonderful. The team that I've dealt with every time have always been very precise, very particular. They're not fluffy. certain things in life you want definitive, decisive actions, and a practice sale, often much more value than even the house sale, means that you don't want somebody who's a have-a-go hero. You want somebody who knows the solicitors, who knows the lending teams, who knows what the CTC wants, who knows how to handle difficult vendors and difficult purchases. If you're thinking of selling, even in a year or two's time, have that conversation early, build that relationship. And I think you may be surprised at the information that you give that might add 10, 20, 50, £100,000 to your value.